welcome to today's edition presented to you by Whipple. My name is Dr. Favor Odun, and today we've brought someone who is a man of strong caliber, someone who when you think about NDA inspection, you think of him. He's a man who likes to be quite modest. Okay. And Dr. Tamale, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So today we are going to be looking at some questions that have been posed to us. We're looking at some things that have been asked over the long time, and in our previous webinar we had some questions that was asked concerning the National Drug Agency, and we saw that there were some loopholes, and we needed someone to come in, someone to step in and help us. So one of the things we want to talk about today is licensing versus ownership conflicts. I want to start with that topic because we've had several scenarios whereby pharmacists that are aggrieved come and they are really bitter. You find a situation whereby someone comes to you and they're like, I think my hands are tied. I've been supervising this pharmacy for a long period of time, and the employer and I were falling out, maybe based on some disagreements, and we can no longer move forward, yeah? And I want to supervise another pharmacy. And unfortunately, I cannot supervise another pharmacy because my license is now being held by the employer. When I go to the pharmacy, I can no longer find my license on the wall, and I need that license to hand it in to the NDA, so I can be able to move on and be able to supervise another pharmacy. So you'll find situations like that. So I want to ask, how can NDA help in such a situation? Because you need that license to be brought back to the National Drug Authority for you to effectively leave the place. That is one. And where you have a situation whereby the employer is holding it and you have no access to it, how can we get help from NDA?
All right, thank you, colleagues and everyone listening for that, because that's something I think we are seeing quite often these days, and I think there've been a few cases, I would say, that we've dealt with in the past few days. And I think the key thing is for, they call it openness, for the pharmacists to approach us and let us know the challenges they have with regards to that. And we've gotten a solution. But at times we can't, why I say honesty, because there are times people come and say, no, I can't access the licenses. And then later you find information that this person probably hasn't even ever been to the pharmacy quite a number of weeks. You get it? So at the end of the day, we are there to support. Even now there's, I think, 1 or 2 cases like that we are handling, and I know we will resolve them. But we expect people, one, to let us know of such a situation, and then there's a modus operandi that we have in place to deal with that. But at the end of the day, we all need the side of pharmacists. Let's be open, and really our doors are open. And I'm not just speaking just for the sake of where I state here, but this is for all the regional offices that we have. We're currently 9 in number across the country. Please feel free to reach out to the regional inspectors in those areas. State it clearly, because at times some people only let you know that they failed to access them. When you ask that, I say resignation, I don't see the licenses, then that's when they bring up that. So please engage the regional inspectors, let us know, we'll do our best to help you with that. But let's also, on the other hand, do our part as professionals and do things in the right way. I don't know if people need anything more, but I'd expect that just as they say that one hand can't clap itself, we need two hands to clap.
Yeah.
We need to do our bit, because at times we also get complaints from beat owners to say, a few weeks ago, one came and said they've never seen their license. All they see is a photocopy of the license. You get it. So let's do our bit. And when you get challenges, I believe the professional body, the Pharmaceutical Society of Uganda, is there to help, and also National Drug Authority will be there to help you. So don't feel constrained when you have an issue that is really beyond your control to let us know. We devise means to ensure that we get to closure.
That's quite great, because if to dive in a bit deeper, I've had situations like that, and we've had a situation that is quite ongoing at the moment, so I believe that's the heads up for anybody who is going through such a situation. I want to clearly note, please, if you're joining in and you have questions, please, you can put them in as in-call messages. After this meeting, we shall be taking your questions one after the other. So, now let's talk about the gray areas. The medicine dispensing and, of course, scheduling gray areas. So, there have been situations whereby we see wholesale pharmacies, yeah? And they are selling prescription-only medicines to patients, okay? Over the counter. These tend to undermine the competitiveness of retail pharmacy as a whole, and especially retail pharmacy that strive to cooperate within the NDA regulatory practices. So, how is NDA going about to handle this? Because right now there are some situations whereby some people would say, you see, Dr. Favor, I have a wholesale pharmacy in my area, and they operate up to late, and you find them selling prescription medicines, and they are selling them to patients, and you find yourself in a situation whereby you, as a retail pharmacy, you're trying to tell the patient, you see, this is the price of this medication. And it's like, no. You see, to the pharmacy is quite cheaper than you. Why are you being expensive? And then you find yourself trying to give a lot of explanation, given the situation at hand, why your price tends to differ from the wholesale pharmacy. And it's now becoming some sort of a burden. So how is NDA going to come in and handle such a situation?
Thank you. This is something I think some of us say NDA noted before even some of the complaints came up based on the surveillance that we do, where people are, or should I say outlets, are not complying with the terms of the licenses that have been issued to them. We've found some retail pharmacies wholesaling. We've identified a number of wholesale pharmacies that are retailing, and we are working on putting that in order. And as I said, this is something where I think we all need to support each other, because when maybe regulations are amended to support access to medicines, it's not like a license to just do what anybody wants. So we are also keenly looking at punitive measures, and this goes all out to, for example, now there are a number of wholesale pharmacies on our radar that are actually retailing, and we really need to get to curb this. So for any complaints that you have or any information that you get regarding an outlet that's operating outside the parameters of the license that's been issued, please feel free to share that information, because during our enforcement and during our surveillance, what we'll have to do is just have to close this down, or even as we get towards renewal, whatever is not to get these licenses probably renewed, because having an isolated incident is one thing, but then having a number of incidents happening in different places that undermines the structure of the pharmaceutical sector is also not a good thing. And I think as a regulatory body, these are things that are being discussed by the authority. These are things being discussed at management level, to see that people should know that there's a cost to everything, because I think that at times there's some form of impunity. I'll do this, and what will NDA do? And stuff like that. But just to let you know that we've taken note of this. It's not something that we are just sitting back on, and we'll be doing our best to try and ensure that we try and mitigate such vices. But it's well taken note of, and just to let you know, we have a list of pharmacies that are doing that, and we are going to do our best.
So if I may chip in,
Yeah.
you're agreeing with me that it's a loophole?
No, it's not a loophole. It's what I'll say is that people are trying to take advantage, and when you try to take advantage of a situation, it doesn't mean that really there's a loophole. The only thing that I will say is that I think one of the key issues we are trying to address in the revision of the bill is the aspect of penalties, because people know that or think that nothing can be done, and they'll keep doing what they're doing, and that's not really good for the industry. But we just urge, and obviously other thoughts keep coming up that maybe some of the amendments that were done earlier, probably it's time to go back to previous, we kind of like do another amendment. But everything that and I know for whatever amendments that were done in the law were done in good faith for the sector to grow and people to serve others. But then it doesn't mean that people need to take advantage. Okay? Because, for example, if we all recall, before an amendments to the regulations were made, I think that was prior to 2021 or something like that. When you're being assessed for starting at the pharmacy, it just had to be any pharmacy. So if you wanted to set up a retail, the rule was clear: distance from another pharmacy. It didn't categorically state whether it had to be retail or wholesale. It was any other pharmacy. So all an inspector or whoever was assessing had to do was determine the distance from that pharmacy. But obviously you get to areas whereby, for example, this is maybe community-based, it's mainly retail, and no wholesale pharmacy would be opened up and such. But then you'd find that, you're trying to get certain services closer to the people. Because if you recall way back, most of the wholesale pharmacies were only in Kampala and maybe just Jinja. All right? But now we have wholesale pharmacies in various districts. And this is one way of really getting services closer to the people. Amendments were made where they're now looking at like to like. All right? But now, because obviously you get to a critical mass of anything, and you'll find that now because of like to like, I can't start up a retail. I think I'll need to start up a wholesale. But the person's mindset is not really to run the wholesale. It's to say, I'll apply for wholesale and we go through it. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, that people want to say. And once it starts getting abused, then you don't want calls whereby now we reverse to the old. I think it's important that we all, just gain a culture of being compliant with the laws, with the regulations that are in place, and with whatever guidances that are given. But yes, it's well taken note of, and the National Drug Authority is keenly looking into this, but still we need your support, you know. The regulator and the regulated need to work together. One, information flow, and two, please feel free to get in touch with us through any of our offices, and we'll do our best to try and, you know, craft solutions that ensure that, you know, people are comfortable within the pharmaceutical sector.
Okay, thank you very much. So, dear members, we have it. As much as we need NDA also needs us. If we are going to be able to, you know, crack down on this wholesaler pharmacies that keep on selling retail, selling drugs, you know, prescription only medicines that retail pharmacies are supposed to sell. So, speaking of gray areas, I have another one for you. We have clinics all over the country that do stockpiling of prescription only medicines, and they don't have a pharmacy or a pharmacist, but they still stockpile these prescription only medicines, and they dispense and they sell sometimes to the community where they, you know, service. So, could this be a failure in reinforcement from NDA, you know, to put a stop on it? Could it be a situation that is, you know, that has risen and hindered the NDA from, you know, carrying out its activities to stop this from going on?
All right, that's a good one. I know this issue has quite a historical aspect, and and I think this is something that has been on the books for quite long, requiring I know wider stakeholder engagement, involving obviously the Pharmaceutical Society, National Drug Authority, the Uganda Medical and Dental Practitioners Council, the Allied Health Professionals Council, and Ministry. Because when looking at this, it's not just about just the NDA law, but I say also about the other players in the in the sector, and this is something that NDA keeps engaging, I would say, Ministry of Health and the other professional bodies regarding this. Because, as I would say, whereas we say, I mean, if you carry out research and ask how many prescriptions are received by pharmacies, I don't know that any of you has done that number in a month to figure out how many get to you. You get it? That's where it starts. That, okay, where are the prescriptions coming? And then two is the aspect of, shall we call it, stockpiling clinics. And you know, I think the law tends to talk of an emergency list or stored or sorts. And this is something, as I said, not just an NDA thing. These are critical discussions that have to be had with the other professional councils and the ministry, so that we are all moving in the same direction. So it's, and this, I'll be honest, it's a challenge, but that should just not be piled on to just NDA alone, but also to the other sectors, and just for people to know, that's how you realize that, like, for certain, I would say the private sector, especially hospitals and medical sector, that's how we started getting to license pharmacies in there. Because before, just that probably maybe it's not wide enough, but I mean, if you look at now the beat case, Nakasero, or SARS, or something like that, yes, there are those that we actually license, because then you know that this entity, irrespective of the fact that it's, say, a medical center or something like that, but it also has a license, you know, and there are certain aspects as to why the license is given, because that the pharmacy that's licensed therein is to serve the clientele that get it there. However, now, which is good, and we've tried to move somewhere bit. Not all of them are like this yet, but we'd like to ensure that we get to onboard as many as possible with this, because then you know that, because at the end of the day you're looking for the balance, that are we following the law, are we ensuring that regulations are there, and not like just having a system that gives some unfair competition. Because if you look at, for example, the costs that are involved in running a pharmacy, and then someone else probably doing it without the license leads, the actual professionals that have to be there. So this is something I know the NDA and PSU will keep driving to ensure that we get to semblance of sanity within there. It's because this is not, I know people will sit there and think that this is like, a one-day event. It isn't. Like some of us who had interactions with the stakeholders that we have, but it has to be a concerted and sustained effort made to ensure that we keep engaging, and obviously we have to keep also the Ministry of Health in the fold, so that people will have to move around, because and in doing all that, it will obviously improve rational drug use, it will improve aspects of drug safety, pharmacovigilance, many other aspects. But we just have to ensure that we keep with a really concerted effort in ensuring that we ramp up the engagement, and not just us. I mean, it could even be the lawmakers, because all these things at times are, guided by also the laws in place and things that we probably need to change. And so we need all the stakeholders involved. But I believe the NDA and the pharmaceutical sector that have to continue with this push.
So we're going to keep
It's
taking
okay.
it one step at a time. Step at a time.
Yes.
Yeah, we accept the situation as it is, but it's not going to continue to be like that forever.
Forever,
Yeah. Okay. At least I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your honesty on that. So let's dive into regulatory double standards. We had said it was going to be
No,
a
it's
hot
okay.
seat.
It's okay.
It's going to be a hot seat.
We'll handle.
Okay, let's go into regulatory double standard. I've had situations whereby pharmacists, complain about selective approvals and perceived bias, especially when it comes to distance between pharmacies, most especially retail pharmacies. The last presentation we had with Dr. Grace Naikazu, and during the presentation she talked about how she was contacted to help a certain pharmacist, to set up a pharmacy. She went through all the necessary documentation that was needed, everything that was needed, and they put in a lot of time, effort, and to also get the location. She said the location was superb, and then NDA tells them no. So NDA tells them no, you cannot set up a pharmacy here, you can't set up a pharmacy here. And so after all was said and done, they had to let the matter rest. And a year later, she said she passed, and then she saw a new pharmacy. Actually, a new pharmacy had taken up the exact location they wanted, and they were quite bitter about this. So, regulatory double standard.
Alleged.
You can say alleged, yeah, okay fine. You can say alleged, but
No, I understand. I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and actually she's not the only person that has actually talked about this. I also have the reason I brought her name up, because we did a live meet like this, and she had with Dr. Faith Dr. Faith was the moderator, so she openly talked about it. But I've also had some, pharmacists, they walk up to me and they're like, Fayette, MBA is not easy. These people, we try to set it up here, but they've told us no. And so that is why I am bringing it back to you.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate the concerns, and maybe my take on this would be one that at times, many a time, people will think that it is double standard, but then you'll find that at times it's because people probably also don't know the prevailing regulations at the time. To give an example, it's I think prior to 2021, to open up a pharmacy in the municipality, the required distance was 300 meters. Right? I do recall we did issue quite a number of rejections. Now, when the regulations were amended, that is, I think, when actually the law setting up all these other cities came up, because I think you remember then it was only Kampala that was considered as a city, and then we started having Jinja and stuff like that. Then there were amendments made to the regulations, which revised certain distances downwards. Now, I know if you look at like Wakiso, which has 4 municipalities, this had a great impact because the airport you've applied and the running regulation is 300 meters. You get it? You get a rejection. Then later along the way, across the financial and all that, things have changed, and it's 150 meters. Now, obviously from the outset, it may appear like a double, but what is the law saying now? Because it's what's happening currently and what's into that goes into that. Then other times we've even received a number of like suits, intentions to say, "Pastor, come saying no, this, that, we're so good, we're doing this." But why? Then pull out the regulations and say, "This is what you're saying, but this is what the regulations are saying." Then that's when they realize, probably there's information that people didn't have that we had. So it will. That's why when you're saying that, I was saying alleged, because at times it's okay to think that you're right until you realize that what is the fact? All right. Yes, and there are various things that happen, and obviously as you realize, and especially yes, there are certain aspects that happen, and that's why we always try to ensure that we have to keep people aware of the regulations, people aware of what's in place, because many times even as some of our colleagues, you'll find that they're not very, very versed with the current laws and regulations that are in place. So we just need to ensure that, this is our space. So whenever you're in any form of business, it's important that you keep abreast with it, with either the changes that are in place. Like for example, now some may not be law, it may be just aspects of ensuring that we operate comfortably. And we just need to keep pushing. But obviously where people feel that they probably think they are aggrieved, we are there to try and ensure that we explain or enlighten and probably provide guidance on how to deal with this. So, but please, if anybody thinks there's any issue, please feel free. Our doors, although mine today is a bit closed, our doors are open. We will do our best. Yes.
Okay. Good enough. You've talked about the distance between both pharmacies when it comes to like retail pharmacies in a community. Now, according to the statutory instruments, drug shops located near pharmacies are required to either upgrade to a pharmacy within 1 year or relocate at least 1 kilometer away at least. Correct?
No.
No, correct.
Not correct.
So clarify that for me.
Clarify. I think, as you all know, if you remember the NDA law as it was, in there it was, I think, stated that once a pharmacy sets up, ideally the distance from a pharmacy that the drug shop was supposed to be was 1.5 kilometers. And if any pharmacy set up closer to the drug shop, the drug shop was required to either close or move. And I think that was 2019. I think that was section 35.
So it was 1.5 kilometers by then, not 1.
No, even now it's 1.5 kilometers.
So it's
1.5 kilometers that any drug shop that applies should be at least 1.5 kilometers from a pharmacy. But then, still in that same law, was that if a pharmacy came to set up near where the drug shop was, and that distance wasn't met, the drug shop either had to close and move. I'm coming, not yet done.
Okay.
That's how it was.
Okay.
Then there was an amendment. I think that section was repealed either in 2019 or thereabouts. I'm forgetting the exact year. Which meant that the drug shop would not have to close whether a pharmacy got set up next to it.
Bring that back slowly. Bring that back slowly.
All right. Let me just backtrack a bit.
Yeah.
In the NDA law, it was stated that a drug shop, Class C drug shop, had to be 1.5 kilometers, and that's the standard. To apply for license for a drug shop, the drug shop has to be 1.5 kilometers away from the pharmacy. But as you realize, as the country was developing, more pharmacies came up. Within the same level, if a pharmacy got closer to any drug shop, now within that bracket 1.5, the drug shop had to move. You get it? I know a number of protests were made about that, and I think it was 2019, if I recall right. That particular section that required a drug shop to move or whatever was repealed. So which meant that if you find a drug shop, like where we are now, there's a drug shop, and the pharmacy comes closer, that drug shop doesn't have to close.
Really?
Yes. However, moving on, because these are still amendments to the regulations, if a drug shop, wherever it is, needs to upgrade to a pharmacy and can only upgrade to a retail pharmacy, it only has to meet the requirements of space. The aspects of distance do not apply.
You're serious?
No, I'm getting it, and hopefully this probably will link back to one of your earlier questions, where you're saying, when the people now think of the double standards.
Yeah.
Now you'll find that there's a drug shop in a place. You get it?
Yeah. It's there?
Nobody's looking at it. It's a drug shop. There's a pharmacy. Later, this drug shop applies to upgrade. So then the distance will not. That's why I'm saying that it's important that people get to know the laws and regulations clearly. just I see you're so quite shocked. But
actually shocked.
If you've never, it is you try. I will share with you stuff. So people need to know this.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring in a twist. Okay. Let me bring in a twist. So you have a pharmacy at a very good location, yeah? The pharmacy is there. Okay? And then let's say there is a drug shop just somewhere.
Let's say 100 meters or 200 meters.
Yeah. And then the drug shop decides to move.
To upgrade.
Oh no, not
Okay, to move.
No, not
Okay.
upgrade.
Okay.
To move.
Okay.
Close to where the pharmacy is.
It can't just move like that.
Or a situation whereby a drug shop decides to open just around.
It can't
It's
open.
not-
It has to be existing. A
It
new
has-
one cannot. Now, you see the rules work in a certain manner. When you drug shop and you apply,
Yeah.
the first thing we try to figure out is that location 1.5 kilometers away from any pharmacy. If it isn't, then it's a failure. You get it?
Okay.
However, when you're assessing a pharmacy, you'll not assess a pharmacy based on a drug shop. You assess a pharmacy based on another pharmacy. So, in other words, for you, you'll be looking what's the nearest pharmacy.
Yeah.
But there could be a drug shop in the vicinity. You get it? Now, which drug shop, if say has the right space and stuff like that, in a matter of time, T can apply for upgrade to a pharmacy. So you'll be here, then after a year you're like, where did that pharmacy come from? But it's all happening within the what? Within the law.
Okay, this is interesting because I was going to ask why NDA keeps allowing them to renew the license when they are close to
Because
the
it
pharmacy.
was because of the changes that are made in the law. That's why you'll still find that the drug shops in Kampala. And Kampala, I think, has quite a, you get it? Yes. Because ideally, I think an ultimatum had been given to all drug shops, I think it was something 2019 in Kampala. So it's because there was almost no drug shop that was licensed in Kampala that was more than 1.5 kilometers away from the pharmacy.
Wow. Okay. This is actually new to me because I had planned to come and ask why is NDA still approving license of drug shops around and all of that. So moving on to our next question on licensed competitors. It's already bad enough that we have to deal with wholesale pharmacies selling prescription-only medications. Now we have a persistent challenge in regulating unlicensed drug sellers. You can find them even in the taxis, in the markets, hawkers, in private cars, moving. You have like a microphone they use to call on people and sell medications to people in the community, people around. So I want to ask, why do we still have a persistent challenge in regulating this?
Wow, that's I don't want to use the word that's a tough one, but it's obviously an issue that we had. Okay, just give an example. We've had people, I think, working or selling medicines in buses, markets, and stuff like that. So we've had, I think the not so distant past, probably 2 or 3 years, we've had to engage with bus owners association, where we've tried to sensitize them about that aspect of people selling medicines there. We've we have made some progress, but then we see this trend seems to be coming back, because already we are receiving reports on a number of routes where people are using the buses, and it means we have to get back up and ramp up the same strategies we used the other time. Then we had an issue of markets, people selling medicines in markets, and this was mainly quite prevalent in Eastern Uganda, where we had to use a number of sensitization strategies and obviously enforcement activities to try and put this down, because at times when people look at, so you have to look at I don't call them culture, different parts of Uganda, you find certain things happening in certain parts of the country are not happening in the others. But then it means that we have to do a lot more, and it's not just about enforcement, it's about you have to look at aspects of sensitization, because you have to work authorities and ensuring that you sensitize people's awareness of the dangers of certain things, and then after that get into enforcement activities. But you'll find that you'll do that for a while, then you think you've made some wins, and then now these things come up. So we've noted that, and we are now trying to see how we ramp up activities to try and stem this. More with even aspects of smuggling, which are actually also happening. That through the buses, so there are all these things that we are seeing that we really and obviously it's right for the public and for you as stakeholders to really, what I would say, push us to continue doing something in order to mitigate all these threats.
So it's still there.
No, it's there. There are some things that we have to be honest and not run away from, because every day you walk out, you find something that is about, because people. I mean, just look at it. Who doesn't know that, for example, the world over, if I'm found moving with cocaine and heroin, it's wrong. But people will still, you get it. So, but we just, as regulators, we just have to keep...
It's a benefit versus risk situation.
Yes, from the other side. But then someone will say, but you guys are there. Then, for example, another person will come and say, but the police does not do anything. But people will still try to steal. People will still try, But from the perspective of regulation, we just have to keep on our toes and ensure that we try and put things to it.
Okay. At least I like the fact you're being honest.
No, you can't run away from it, because these things are happening, but we just have to keep on our toes and say that but we also need, as I said, we need support from you, the professionals and the public, because at times we also rely on accurate information, which feeds also our strategies that we have to put in place.
Okay. So now there is this situation about the e-pharmacy.
Okay.
Yeah, and its regulation. So we know that the e-pharmacy is steadily gaining traction, and I don't know, is it possible, could you please take us through the regulatory framework NDA has put on ground for the e-pharmacy? And I think we should start from there.
Yeah. All right, I think what we all just need to know is that obviously during the COVID pandemic, I think this is when the aspect of call it e-pharmacy, online pharmacy, all came more to light. Now, I know it's quite, maybe relatively, it's better advanced in other countries, especially in the West. But you'll find that for our setting here, if you looked at our regulatory framework, there was no provision for that. Okay, and obviously some guidances have to come out, but you saw guidance is guidance, it's not necessarily law. But based on the fact that the law is undergoing revision, the aspects that have been embedded therein. However, I think the current guidance is NDA does not issue licenses for online pharmacies.
Okay.
All right. I don't know the. In other words, if a person come and apply that, no, I want a license to operate an online pharmacy.
Okay. NDA
That
does not.
will. The only guidance that's been given is that for a person to run or to have like an online presence must be tied to a physical license. For example, if I'm licensed as Tamale Pharmacy, and then say I write the thing that there will be these aspects of online pharmacy that have, so they have to be tied to that. But this business of that I just want to run an online pharmacy, but the revised law will attend to that. So and people just need to be a bit. Say I know I want to run very fast, but we can't run ahead of certain legal issues. Yes.
Because I had a situation whereby someone was asking me, how we can go about to start the e-pharmacy and all of that. But now you cannot just start an e-pharmacy on your own. You must have an actual physical pharmacy, to connect it. So I want to request for us to go in for a short break. We're going to be back to take the questions.